And then when I started doing it, I was like, oh, this makes so much sense now. So sometimes it's like you don't know what you have to improve on. So if someone tells me, I'll try to listen more carefully now. And before this, I felt like sketching in my sketchbook actually was like one of my weaknesses somehow, like I didn't know why I was so compelled to learn sketching in sketchbook. I was like, but I felt like that was the right thing to do. And then when I started to sketch in my sketchbook, I realized that the reason why I do it is not because I'm trying to flex on anyone and be like, I can sketch in a sketchbook. It's like not because of that. It's because I can put down ideas in a lot more final way in sketchbook, because there's this final thing. There's no Control Z, and I just have so many bad habits of like.
How far are you willing to go to push your craft? This is something we talk about in today's episode with concept artist and Concept 101 co-founder Stefan Valasek, who joins us for today's episode. And in this wide-ranging conversation, we talk about the extraordinary lengths he has gone to towards improving his craft, how he broke into the industry, where he's at now in his career, the power of sketchbooks, and how mindfulness ties this all together. Let's go.
Yes, I've hit record. That's good. Please welcome today's guest, Stefan Valasek. Firstly, sorry if I've mispronounced your name, but welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks. Nice to be here, man. It's a pleasure. It's been a while since you had, I think, 3 of us on the podcast, me,
Yes.
Jules, and Dan, when we were still organizing the first Concept 101, maybe?
Yeah.
Ages ago.
And was that like a couple of years ago? Yeah, almost 2 years ago, I think, or
It's
around
been more than
that
2
time.
years. Or it was almost 2 years. Did you invite us after we did the first Concept 101 or no?
I believe it was on the lead up to it.
Okay, so it must be over
it
2
was
years
like,
now, because
yeah.
we organized 2, and yeah, I think so. It's been a while.
Nice. It sounds like organizing has definitely interfered with time like
Awareness, yeah.
what is it? Yeah, that's it. Time awareness, because my time awareness is completely all over the place, and I don't even organize an event. So, it shows that the effect that you can have. But yeah, before we get into all the good stuff, if you wouldn't mind letting the crowd know who you are and what you're up to.
So my name is Stefan Valasek, and I work as a concept artist at Sharkmob here in London, and I am from Slovakia, actually, originally. And yeah, I've been doing concept art for about 3 years now. So it's been a while, not that long, but certainly I feel like I'm like towards the journey where I'm transitioning from being not really feeling like a junior anymore. I'm feeling more like definitely like more established mid-level concept artist, and kind of looking towards hopefully going towards like becoming a senior concept artist. It definitely feels like I've grown a lot since then, I have to say. And
Nice.
looking back, I can definitely see how junior I was.
And I guess growth doesn't always necessarily mean like a positive thing. Like you can grow in bad ways and good ways. Do you mean in a positive way that you can see the growth?
I think so. Yeah. Like how you said it, like growth really happens in many aspects in life, and in concept art as well. Sometimes you become better at something, but forget another part of your job, Like I have certainly became better at making like images and kind of world building designs and stuff like that. But I think a skill that I've kind of neglected a little bit was more kind of hard surface design skills. So, I used to, I don't know if for anyone who is listening, Sharkmob released already a trailer of the Exoborn game, which was something that I worked on for almost 2 years, probably less than 2 years, maybe like a year and a half. But since then, I moved on to a different project that I'm working on here in London. So my skills, I've been put on different tasks. I haven't been doing as many design tasks. I've been doing a lot more world building, exploration stuff. So
Mhm.
yeah, but I think I still grown in all aspects. I've done recently some kind of designs just for personal practice, and I still have the design thinking in me when I'm doing like something
Yes.
that's hard surface. I still kind of have that understanding of analyzing objects and remembering
Mhm.
them when I draw them. So I still have it. But yeah, it's been quite an improvement process
Mm.
in this case. Yeah.
It definitely, like, I guess it's one of those. I'm sure this happens in every kind of vocation and job where naturally, wherever you start, like you are gonna, improve your skills and level up and all that kind of stuff. But I think definitely in the creative field, maybe because it's more visual, you can kind of see that. But there's definitely a lot of more the invisible stuff that we tend to not see or even able to recognize. But there's definitely like some serious growth that can happen in any direction in this kind of field.
I,
Like, is that something that kind of like were you aware of, or is that something that you just found out upon reflection?
I think it's definitely something that people tell you when you get into the industry. Everyone's like, yeah, you're going to have all these mentors and you're going to learn all these things and it's going to be super exciting and you'll have a whole team around you. And I wish I could say that was the case from the get go, but it wasn't because when I did actually work on Exaborn, I worked for the Swedish office, essentially working almost remotely, even though I was in
Mm-hmm.
the London studio. So it was a lot more difficult to get this kind of get this kind of teaching
Mm-hmm.
from someone. So only recently, I would say, I had a team, a full team of concept artists, where I can like kind of learn from and get inspired from, and it that. And when I did actually have this team, I've seen a lot of the improvement happen. Even
Mm-hmm.
before, of course, I've improved a lot, but it felt a lot more like difficult, like my own effort. And I still have to. It still has to be my own effort to improve. Um, but it feels a bit more natural. It feels less forced. It feels like I have my art director looking at my images and being like, well, you can work on this section of your artwork or on this, or, maybe you
Mm-hmm.
need to improve your shape language. And then my art director mentioning that allows me to see my kind of mistakes and then improve upon them. And yeah, I mean, dude, when I started at Sharkmob, because it's been like 3 years, I started like, it was me. I think it was one of the first. I was like fifth hire or something. So like
Wow. Okay.
literally from nothing, And I couldn't believe it when I got hired. I was like, wow, this is insane. Like, how am I being hired to this incredible team? And I later on heard that it was apparently okay. I mean, not to downplay myself, but when a company's starting off and they're not very famous, they will get a lot of like shitty applications. So my okay art at the time stood out among like tons. Like people will apply
Okay.
that like they don't even know how to draw. They'll be like, I can get this job, you know. But in reality, they've just started to drawing and they're just at the beginning of their journey and they still need another, probably 5 years to actually get to the level that they need to
Mm-hmm.
to apply for that kind of job, and maybe they don't know it but they still go for it. So you end up having like hundreds of like applications. And then yeah, apparently, my old art director Ben, he was going through the art and he saw my art and he was like, okay, this guy's pretty good. And then we had an interview, and it was like an amazing interview. We both chatted
Mm.
about Ron Cobb. Do you know Ron Cobb? Yeah,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
fucking old school sci-fi.
Icon.
Yeah, I worked on Alien and all this stuff. Actually, I bought Daniel one of his birthdays. I bought him like the book of Ron Cobb, like design stuff,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so amazing. And yeah, so we chatted, and then I was hired, and essentially, you know, um, I started there, and it was just me. And then Richard joined, actually, Flaptraps. I'm sure whoever listens to the podcast knows Richard Anderson, because he's very, very, very famous.
Very cool.
But he wasn't working on the same project that I was working on. He was working on a different project. So as much as I had him near me, I never could quite learn from him because the work that we were doing was quite different. And he was also, I don't know how to say it, but like Richard is very intuitive artist. So learning from him can be a little bit like complicated, where you kind of need to almost like pull out the information out of him. And like he knows the information, it just like takes a bit of conversation. So, and I was young, I didn't know how to do these things back then. So eventually he left the company, leaving me and Marcus, and I'm here just going to like a whole storytelling of my journey in shark mode. But like Marcus, Michael, he is my friend at Shark Mob who does character concepts, and it was just it was just me and Marcus then, and unfortunately Richard left, and we were holding on this whole project together. He's doing all the characters, I'm doing all the environments, and we have no one really to learn from. Our art director Sam Hogg, like she was just newly became an art director, so she had like tons of responsibilities. So we are kind of like handling all these things together, and we somehow managed to pull it together. And then eventually we pass like whatever stage we had to pass with the game, and then we get new hires essentially, and they hire Gerald, who's like the environment concept artist. They hire Dave Freeman, who used to work at ILM with Dan, so they hired him for principal. And then we hired two more character concept artists, Astri Lone and Leah Bickelmeyer. So they are character concept artists. So essentially now we have like a lot bigger team, and everyone on the team is like very, very good artists, and it's super exciting. It's exciting and fun time.
Sick. So, see, when you talk about, obviously, I guess you could say the early days when it was much more smaller, much more intimate. It sounded definitely much more like, and I mean this respectfully, but like more guerrilla kind of thing. Like it's just more like all hands on deck. I guess you had to do a lot of things in wear many hats rather. To me, like that stuff always excites me. I've been in that situation, different jobs before, and personally, I've always found that like, yes, when that doesn't have to be the case, you definitely can breathe a sigh of relief, and it's like, okay, yes, not again, never again, but somebody end up back there later on. However, it's something that you learn things in that kind of situation that you can never ever learn in a structured way, kind of thing. Like you have to be in that place, almost, so to speak, in that kind of like setting, in order to, I guess, pick up skills that you gain in that regard. However, with that said, what's your take on it? Like, do you miss that kind of time, or do you definitely feel like, if possible, that chapter is kind of like done?
I think the thing that I miss about it a little bit is the closeness that you have with the colleagues, right? I knew at a point when I was in a company, I knew like all the directors, right? We would just go to their barbecues and stuff like that. So that was really cool. And the bigger the company got, the less I got to know everyone. And I still know the concept team, and I have a few friends in the company, but it's a little bit less kind of intimate now in that sense. Like I don't know them. I cannot say like they're my friends anymore. So I miss that, and I think I prefer to have a bigger concept team for sure, I would say, than just like two people handling everything. Especially when you're like super junior, it becomes like so stressful to have like so much pressure on you. And luckily I managed to perform very well, and Marcus did as well under pressure. But it kind of takes away from the growth that you can have, because you don't want to experiment as much. You just go like, what is the best way to do this, and you just do it. So yeah, I think I will fondly remember it, but I'm not sure if I would want to do it right now. I'm kind of like happy to be in this situation now, I think.
Yeah, fair enough. So you mentioned like concept artist for 3 years. Is that 3 years from the moment you said I want to be a concept artist, or is that 3 years as a professional?
It's 3 years as a professional. So I've been working at Shakmo for over 3 years. And that's like, I did a little, so it could be like even longer, maybe 3 years and like,
Mhm.
who knows, 5 months or something, because I did some freelance before Shakmo. But yeah.
Cool. And what was your journey like before that? Like, did you study to become a concept artist, or was it something that you kind of did self-taught? What was your pathway to this? I guess where you are now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a lot of the people who come from, and it's weird to say, like the generation of artists that I am now, because, you know, like they come probably from people who like saw a video of Feng Zhu, and that's how I went as well. I saw a video of Feng Zhu doing some amazing painting, and I thought, wow, this is insane. This is what I have to do for life, you know. Essentially, it's like it's this kind of eureka moment that just happens, you know. And I wanted to draw comic books at first, like for Marvel and stuff like that. So I did a lot of like comic book drawings. And I was quite serious about it. Like at that point, I was serious. I'll be doing art. I just wasn't quite sure if comic books was the right thing. And then I saw like the design videos and stuff like that. I thought, wow, okay, like this is a job. I should do it. You know, like why not? And since then, I just took it quite seriously and decided to learn kind of very structurally. So I bought all the books that I could buy, like the design. Some design books, and then I bought the Scott Robertson books as well about perspective and stuff like that. And I started learning all that stuff and learning anatomy as well. And so I went through all of the kind of all of the main structured things that I should have learned. And then I got to uni somehow, managed to make it to university. I was surprised I passed my secondary school exams. Because I was just drawing, because I was like, okay, I'm doing art, so I'll just draw and I forget about studying. And then when I was going to have to go to UK, they're like, you actually need to have like good grades from your final exams. So I remember I took like 3 months off from drawing or something, and I had like a structured plan. And I remember I learned physics from the first year to the last year in those 3 months. So I went through like all 4 books of physics. So it was pretty intense, and as I said, I made it. I graduated with like very good, like excellent marks and stuff, and I got to uni, and that's kind of like where the really drawing journey started. Like beforehand, as I said, I was drawing at home. I think the only other education that I had was going to like Google Hangouts from the Level Up days. They used to have like Google Hangouts, and I met a bunch of like incredible artists there, like Nikolai Lebedev and Yuri Chemezov. They're not like, if anyone is listening, like look those guys up. They're very, very good artists, and they're like kind of illustrators that know really well how to paint. So they taught me some stuff, and I took some of that knowledge and their advice to uni, and I started to kind of take the university step by step, doing all the assignments, and I kind of decided to just take it ad hoc and like take some of the assignments that they give me, but also make up whatever I thought was important for me to learn. So at that time, I started to, it was like my first year, I started to learn from Learn Square. So I took when Learn Square started, it was like only a couple courses there. And there was my Chase course with the environment. And there was Jama's course with the what was it called? Like, not concept art shortcuts. Narrative something concept art. And then, so I took those 2. I learned them, and I did my assignments for those courses based on like the projects that I was getting from uni. So I was just like kind of putting it all together, and and that was like, those are the kind of years that I've the 3 years in uni. I just did that. The only thing I kind of wish I did more is potentially started looking for mentors earlier. I think I was always very intimidated to reach out to someone, and back then it felt very inaccessible. Maybe now it feels maybe a bit more accessible because of Discord and stuff. But so I didn't really have any mentors, and I think that's something that held me back a little bit, because the teachers at the university were not the best at that time. So I just had to kind of learn everything, from online, but also by myself, and with my friend actually Alex, who I have to mention here because he like was studying alongside with me, and we both just like grinded our way through every homework we have to do, and just like did everything we could to get as good as we could be. That was our goal. It's like, okay, we're gonna become concept artists. We don't care like how difficult it is, and we just went for it every day. And then was it. Third year of uni, you graduate, and you're like this big void. You have to apply for jobs, but also you are like insecure about your own work because we're not sure. Like, are we good enough? Are we not? And at the time, I did we did this challenge, which was, I talk about this briefly in one of the Concept 101 podcasts that we do. So I'm not going to go too much into detail here, but it was a challenge where we had to work like all the time, essentially. The idea was like, you don't take any breaks except 1 hour lunch break, and you wake up at like 7 and you finish at 11, and you just go nonstop drawing. And we wanted to kind of see if we can push ourselves to our limits, but funny enough, we didn't learn that much at the time. It was like 6 or 8 weeks, and we just burned ourselves out, and we didn't learn anything. We just did art nonstop, but because we didn't have much of like the work smart. We just had the work hard approach, So when that all ended, I did. I kind of took a little bit, I don't know, like a week break or something from work, and that was a long time for me actually, because I just used to do work all the time, the whole time in uni, and I never really questioned anything that I did. I just thought, I'm gonna become a concept artist, so this is it, this is the goal. I don't care what it takes. But in reality, it took out of me more than I thought it would, and I am not necessarily the same person almost that I was back then. Like that challenge that we did like changed somewhat me as a person. I decided to be a bit more loving to myself, I would say it this way, in a sense that I would ask myself questions of like, do I actually want to do this? Like, what do I care? Like, and trying to find the internal motivations for some of these things, and trying to find the enjoyment in art as well, not just pure goal and grind, just gonna be the best,
And this was prior to reaching the industry?
Yes, this was prior to reaching the industry. Sick. Yeah.
I'm saying sick because like, to have that realization prior to becoming a professional, like that's quite profound to hear. And you say that you didn't learn much, I guess. Or I guess the better way to frame it is, you didn't learn what you expected. Like literally, you just learned how to love yourself and interpret that how you want to interpret it. But it's like pushing yourself to the limit is definitely, in anything, I'd say, like, not controversial, but definitely put like a disclaimer and warning label in anything, especially, in like this day and age where people just dish out advice left, right, and center, claiming it's the truth kind of thing. And then people do it like blindly. But there is definitely a power in pushing yourself as far as you possibly can in a safe manner, or at least knowing you're pushing yourself, as opposed to getting pushed and realizing that you're at breaking point, but feeling like that is how it should be. And I guess like a follow-up question it would be is, what made you feel like that was the way forward? And I guess like we can tie that up with what you mentioned about like just constantly working. Like, I totally get that. I totally get the drive, and just almost doing things nonstop. Like, I always have to be told, and again, most of the time, this is rarely to a positive outcome, like to stop. I always have to be told to stop or take a break or remind that, you have other functions that you need to kind of do, as opposed to just this thing standing in front of a screen. But what do you think, and have you even thought about this, that really made you feel like that was the way forward? Like, was it from yourself? Or was it from external sources?
Yeah, so I guess so. This question that you asked, so like the first thing you asked if, you asked if it was, sorry, my brain stopped. You asked what made me realize what was the way forward, right? If this that was
Yeah.
the way forward, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I think I I realized that being kind of nice to myself was something that made me feel kind of, I don't know, there's like a just the right feeling essentially. I think that is the best way to put it. I think when you find something that's going to be the right way to do it, and sometimes you search for it for a very very long time, and it takes a long time to find it, but when you find it, you know it. And I I didn't know, and I still don't know quite where this journey goes, right? Because I still haven't learned all of this stuff. But I felt at the time an incredible motivation to do work that was coming from another place, and it was something where I would wake up in the morning excited to do work, which is something that I never felt before. Sadly to say, I mean, I probably felt at the beginning when I started art, but then like kind of lost it during my university time, and like refinding that was incredible, and
Yes.
yeah. So at the time, I did course with Ricardo Lima at CGMA, and it was just everything was perfect. I was doing insane amount of work, but like having tons of fun and feeling like I was pushing myself the right way. And when I pushed myself too much, I was able to take a break, like something that I couldn't do before. Before I would just sit at my desk and cry and just call myself like I can't give up, and then, but in reality, it's okay. It was first time also realizing that's okay to fail, even in front of other people, in front of like the mentor. Like, okay, maybe I didn't deliver the exact amount I wanted to deliver this time, So yeah, I did. I was quite that was quite happy time, and it was interesting to go from this like just really kind of downhill and then be kind of happy again. It was nice, I have to say.
No, that's really good to hear. And would you say like that's just, let's say again you weren't an artist, you'd something else perhaps. Do you think you would have done the same approach? Like, is this something that is how you do things, I guess, or at least when you were at that stage in your career, I guess, life?
You mean like is this how I would approach other things other than art as well?
Yeah, like I guess like just really like just testing your limit, or just that drive to, obviously I guess like it could be the failure aspect because you mentioned that as well. Like it could be definitely like fear of failure is definitely a powerful fuel. Equally, realizing that failure in itself can also lead to better progress is also powerful as well, maybe more powerful. Yeah. But one has to come after the other one. So I guess there's a few things I'm just throwing out here, but yeah, like from people that I've spoken to and people that I know personally as well, like for some, the environment makes them like that, and then for others, it's purely inside their brains.
I think in general, like I would like, and let me know if I'm like answering this question how you kind of phrased it properly, but I think right now for sure I approach things more from like this kind of mindfulness approach of like caring for myself, but I also am, I don't really push myself to the limit anymore, and I do it in a progressive steps right now. And I would say, don't know, like, okay, so like long term, I can also say, like, I think it was the right thing to do, but I think there is a lot more beyond it that I didn't realize, essentially. So when I did the course with Ricardo Lima, I obviously didn't stay that motivated for the whole time, actually. I lost a lot of motivation afterwards. You know, going for searching for jobs, you know. So like, what I want to say is like the whole, you might have like one revelation, but then you realize there's like another hill to climb of like understanding yourself and understanding life. And I think even bigger picture from that was that there's always sections to life. And as you go through it, you learn about yourself, you learn about your surroundings, and you learn the life lessons as they come, you know, and you hopefully take it with you and you can kind of move forward, and you will be probably changed as a person, but hopefully if you do it right, you'll be changed for better. And it's this kind of like life experience essentially that we all have, and it's related to art as well, and it's related to other things as well, you know, whether it's family or friends or, you know, conference as well that we organize. Like all of these things, they all kind of account to this experience. And for me, as I was saying, like going after the Ricardo Lima stuff, I did my projects. I did the projects that I felt were the best projects I ever done. And I searched for jobs for 8 months. And I was really in, you doubt yourself, and everyone, and I hear this from everyone who apply for jobs, they doubting yourself, of like being scared. Okay, maybe I'm not going to make it. Maybe I'm shit. Sometimes you don't hear from anyone, you know, they never tell you. And you think, man, they don't even tell me why I'm shit, you know? So you are just, you become quite insecure about your work, and that's how it goes as well. You know, that was part of another experience, you know?
Yes. That incredible. And you mentioned there obviously about mindfulness as well, which is like I personally believe like it's an art form also. Like it's the mind in particular. It's hard to explain. Like it can be incredibly powerful, and well, it is definitely powerful, but it can tie you up into a mess. It can get you out of messes, and all that kind of stuff as well. What's your, and also like I really like how, and this is just me personally liking it. I'm not saying it makes it any better if someone else finds it in a different way, but I like how it was from your own way of like pushing yourself or just trying to achieve a goal where you discovered, I guess, the mindfulness aspect of things.
Yeah.
And I guess before I get to this question, just to I guess confirm and clarify, have you found yourself going back to that particular place, or do you find that since you started focusing on yourself and knowing, I guess, like to summarize, kind of like when to take a, you know, take your foot off the gas kind of thing, and just pace yourself and regulate things? Have you ever gone back, or have you kind of like found a way forward almost?
I don't know. I feel like I'm slowly going back.
Right.
But I am, you know, I feel like honestly I do, I have periods when I do go kind of like doing a lot of work at once, essentially, and feeling quite tired from stuff. But I don't do it necessarily because I don't feel like have a overarching goal. So a lot of the times when I am pushing myself to the limit is because I already put a lot of other responsibilities on myself. So like, for example, I'll be doing a mentorship, and I feel like, okay, I have to perform, I have to do mentorship. So I'll do like a whole month of just doing a lot of work at a time, and, you know, organizing a conference as well. So it all like kind of just adds up. Like last year, as we were finishing the conference, I was doing a mentorship from Ryan Fair, who worked on some of the God of War stuff, and I'm organizing the conference, and you know, for sure, we told you how it all went, and it was insanely tough, an absolute like mind blowing experience when finally actually happened somehow, and you know, at the time I was still doing that mentorship stuff, so I was like my mind was everywhere, but it was not necessarily because I had a goal of like one singular goal. It was more just I had these responsibilities that I felt like I had to do them. But here I also want to add that, you know, I've been surrounded by like people who are very hardworking, like Daniel or Jules, and I see them kind of drawing all the time, and I'm trying to obviously replicate that. And sometimes, like everyone, I feel like lazy as well about myself, and I feel like sometimes I think, oh man, I used to be so much more hardworking. Like, what happened? I'm not the same person anymore. Like, what am I? What am I, a little bitch now? Like what is happening, right? But I kind of try to always take a step back and be like, look, I am working a lot of hours, and I'm trying to find a sustainable approach to doing as much work that I want to do that makes me fulfilled, So at the end of the day, like, I'm not going to be doing more work that is not going to make me fulfilled, right? But there's more. But let's say I want to do more work. Let's say I want to be like, I want to do 1 hour. I want to do 2 hours of drawing every day if I can, right? And then at the end of the week, I feel like I had enough time for personal development in art as well. The way that I'm doing it is like, I'm trying to build a habit of drawing every day for like at least 1 hour, and I have like a timer, and I try to do it, right? And building that habit hopefully helps me to make this feel less like I'm pushing myself. Or again, maybe if I have, like today we did the drink and draw with the constant one on Discord. Hey, maybe if I'm feeling responsible to go and do a demo in front of people for 3 hours, I'm not going to be thinking about, oh, I have to do art. I'll just be excited about doing art, So I don't know. I'm just trying to find ways how to like trick myself into doing more work.
Yes. I think it's great. And I think that's ultimately always what it's about. Even moving away from like art stuff, like, let's say being a parent, for example, it's a lot of similar things, especially in terms of like, a lot of the stuff about being a parent is not exciting, not glamorous, and it actually requires a lot of like personal energy and resources and all that kind of stuff that takes away from, I guess, the more glamorous things in life. But yeah, it is like, about, I guess, talking to yourself, conversing with yourself, telling yourself, I guess, the whys of things. And ultimately, personally, I think that is something that I found quite powerful for myself. I guess something that I feel like I need to do, because looking back and thinking that, okay, if I never had done that, and this is like even with art and stuff as well, like having a conversation with myself,
being like
like a
retrospective.
proper one.
Yeah.
Exactly. Not just like, I've done that before too. Like, just work faster, work harder. Why, like almost berate myself into getting to the finish line, which I still think, which I've done in the past, do less now. But I also know that if I ever get there, I know that can work in that particular instance. Yeah. Like, there's always that big red button you have to press in anything, right? And sometimes you press it, you get the job done, but nothing's ever going to be the same again. But it's there for a reason. But equally, there's also that other time where you actually like have to really take stock and put things in perspective, and then just kind of figure stuff out. And a lot of it I found was like, I guess it was overwhelming when you're trying to figure out so many things at once. And I guess one thing that did help me was understanding the concept, or at least the way I understand it, of mindfulness, and just really like realizing that you kind of don't know yourself, that you think you do. And most of the time, before you even start knowing yourself, you kind of be running on this like mental autopilot, or impulse, and just off like, I guess, vibes around you, and not really knowing why.
I see what you mean.
But yeah.
So you're essentially what you're saying is like, when there's either like a group around you, let's say there's like a group around you, can bring it back to art or whatever, like there's a group around you and they're drawing all the time, and you just end up drawing all the time because they are near you, and you just end up flowing to their vibe, but you never really understand. Then when the group goes away, you stop drawing and you're like, oh my God, what happened with me? Am I like a shittier person? You don't know. And because maybe you are not thinking properly, you don't understand that group is what made you motivated. But maybe that is also what you need as a person, is to have that group that keeps you motivated, right? And going back to understanding those things and reasons, and understanding yourself and like how you feel about those things that make you kind of do the stuff that you want to do, this was kind of stupid what I said, but what I meant to say is like when you understand the surrounding factors that make you go a certain way in life, then you will pick out the factors and put them in front of yourself to make you essentially do like what you want to do or where you want to go, right? But to do that, as you said, you need to be mindful. You have to be aware. You have to be aware of everything that's around you, you know?
Yeah, totally. So what's your mindfulness journey like right now? Like, what do you kind of do to, I guess, cultivate it? Do you do anything like deliberate, or is it just a case of just like, I guess in your life, you just make a note of it? Kind of
Yeah,
thing? Like, how does it
I think
for
it's
you?
pretty simple. I think anyone can do this. Is just like go, and whenever you have a little bit of time to breathe, and sometimes it can be once a month. I don't really schedule any of these things, but when it happens, I just sit down and with a sketchbook or with a notepad, and I write down a bunch of things. And if there is something that's like annoying me a lot, you know, I'll just try to find like a small, simple solution to it, you know, and then try to stick with it and see if it works. So I think it's good to just every now and then do a little bit of retrospect, and maybe you can even ask other friends, you know, and what they think, and then see your own reaction. Maybe they say something to you and you're feeling angry about it, and then go back, be like, okay, why was I feeling angry about it, you know, and stuff like that. But I would say just little bit of sitting down in the park and thinking to yourself, having time just by yourself is good. Yeah.
And I guess like to segue into like, I guess just other things outside of art, obviously that sometimes can be a great thing as well. Like if it is art or your profession that is really getting a bit too much perhaps, or just kind of like you've maxed out all of your internal GPU cores and CPU cores and RAM and all sorts of stuff and just gotta kind of cool down. What do you do? Is it a case of like just finding somewhere like nature, or do you have other things where you kind of like just unwind and separate from, I guess, your day
I
to day?
think so. This is like we wanted to. I don't know. We wanted to have a topic about this in our podcast as well, which was becoming master of another craft, essentially. And in my case, I've recently started climbing. So I used to do gym for many years, for like 9 years actually, and I started with doing calisthenics, and I could do like handstand push-ups without the wall, and I could do like a straddle planche. Like I was pretty strong at the time. Started going to the gym, and then kind of eventually discovered climbing recently, and that's something to me that like inspires me to go outside essentially of my house or whatever, just go to like a climbing gym and you know go up some difficult boulders, some like difficult climbing problems and stuff like that. And that's what I do, you know. I do that stuff to keep myself kind of strong, but also to do a little bit of a physical activity and to have another goal beyond just like art, you know. I think to me this kind of like helps me to keep me a bit more well-rounded, you know, and you know, just not just art, you know, even though art like every concept art is like art is your life and blah blah, you know. But yeah.
No, I agree. And I guess you probably say the same, like art kind of, would you say art is your life? Even though you have all these other things? And how would you define that statement? Like what to you looks like someone who says art is their life? Like, is it definitely someone who has to be making art all the time? Because, you know, sometimes making art all the time could be one piece over a decade.
Yeah.
It could be, you know, a million pieces in a decade.
I don't know, man. I think everyone's art journey is different. And like, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, about what is my art journey? You know, where am I going? Because I've kind of, I remember listening to Bobby Chu's podcast where he was saying he finished something like this, like he finished uni and then he was hired by DreamWorks or whoever. He was like one of the big companies like Disney or something. And then he went to work for them and he achieved this. I mean, that was his dream for like 5 or 6 years when he was in uni. And like, I think about myself and I don't necessarily have like a clear goal right now. So I'm like, damn, maybe I'm lost, maybe I'm lost as an artist, and what can I do to like find that goal? But I'm not trying to push it. I'm not trying to put the goal in front of me and just be like, okay, this is the goal. And maybe eventually I'll try that. I will try a bunch of things, and I'm not sure yet. But the way I see it is like, who knows? My art journey, like if we do the podcast a year from now, I could be totally different, just like going for it. And I have this perfect goal and it's perfectly clear. And maybe it will be like that for a few years and then it's going to disappear again, And at the end of the day, I see it like as an artist, I think like probably one thing that I have to do no matter what, like whether I have the big goal or don't have it, is to keep improving my skills. I think that's like a clear thing that to me is, because when that opportunity presents, I want to be ready for it, When that goal is there and it's clear, I want to be ready for it. And until then, I'm just going to keep doing art and I'll keep focusing on getting better, And that's like kind of what I have to say about that.
Nice. I like it. Very good. Regarding like skills, do you target what you want to improve on? And I guess like what are you working on right now, skills?
I'm working on shape language right now. That's like my main skill that I've been improving. I've been kind of told at work that's something that my director wants me to improve on. So I contacted a very, very good concept artist. Can't really say right now because I'm not sure if he wants me to talk about the stuff he's teaching me or the mentorship or whatever, because he doesn't do many mentorships, but he is a very good concept artist with shape, like that understands shape language to its core. I mean, I'm yet to have a session with him where I ask him a question and he doesn't know an answer. I mean, it's been pretty fucking good. So I've been learning shape language and focusing on my design skills and shapes and understanding like shape appeal, I would say as well. So like, how do you take a design or a painting or a sketch, and how do you make it more appealing? How do you make it look cooler and more interesting? That all this simple things of like big, medium, small, and like uneven spacing and having things certain flow or potentially even associations with like poses or other things. Like having if you can draw a house and then give it a pose almost like a human, almost like, then it feels a bit more authentic. People might not know about it, but it feels a lot more authentic. That's when you do something like that. That's what I've been kind of focusing on a lot lately, essentially.
Sick. What was the previous thing before this? Like, what was so do you tend to like focus on a topic at a time, or do you do multiple ones at a time? Like, what's your process when it comes to developing yourself?
I think it's like, it also comes a little bit with feeling. Like, what do I feel like it's lacking in my kind of art arsenal, essentially? And sometimes it comes with, like, when my art director was like, shape language. I didn't quite know. I mean, that if you have Dan at some point in the podcast, he'll probably, and you ask him this, he'll probably tell you that he always told me I have to improve my shape language. But, he was right. And then when my art director told me, I was like, I gotta fucking do this shit. So, and then when I started doing it, I was like, oh, this makes so much sense now. So sometimes it's like, you don't know what you have to improve on. So if someone tells me, I'll try to listen more carefully now. And before this, I felt like sketching in my sketchbook, actually, it was like one of my weaknesses somehow, like I didn't know why I was so compelled to learn sketching in sketchbook. I was like, but I felt like that was the right thing to do. And then when I started to sketch in my sketchbook, I realized that the reason why I do it is not because I'm trying to flex on anyone and be like, I can sketch in a sketchbook. It's like, not because of that. It's because I can put down ideas in a lot more final way in sketchbook, because there's this final thing. There's no Control Z, and I just have so many bad habits of like undoing. It's just insane. Like I cannot. It's almost impossible for me to draw a sketch without undoing in Photoshop. Like it's just this horrible habit. When I'm sketching, it's totally new, and I don't make Control Z obviously, and I don't use eraser, so I just sketch it out. even if it's with pencil, and then I just go and move on, like so I worked on my sketching, and I worked on like kind of world building, design thinking as well. Like I mean, you're not gonna see this that much. Let me see what I can show in here. So this stuff, and these are just like little environment sketches, and then some of these as well. Actually, I don't do them like this right now. So like these.
Yeah.
Right now, what I actually do is like I make a marker sketch, and I leave it to be a marker, and then I sketch over it in Photoshop because of like the way my process works. But yeah, so I realized like doing a sketch, for example, like tiny sketch is what I do, like tiny little sketch, and then I use a marker like number 2 marker, and then number 0, number 2, and then number 5. And by the time I'm like on the number 5 marker, the image has to be like clear. So like I make sure that I understand exactly what's happening in the image by the time I get to the final marker. And that's it. I already made the decisions. Decisions are made. I usually have some references that I'm basing the ideas from. And then I could just move on to the next idea. And if it was not successful, that's okay. I'll just move on to the next one. But I can see the unsuccessful one as well in front of me and improve it as well. Rather than like when you're in Photoshop, you just erase and you try and erase and try, and you don't really see all the tries. You cannot really analyze them anymore. You can just, and maybe there was something good in there, So yeah, that's why it was that's why I do things in Sketchbook, now. So.
Now, sketchbooks, I absolutely swear by them. And I don't see anything for me ever surpassing it. Like in terms of like you nailed it, like for idea exploration, for just trying things out, even like just a little squiggle there. Like there's just something about it that is always the best. I personally, obviously, like, for work or whatever, like everyone has to like do digital sketches or whatever. As much as I've tried, and I still do it, and it's nice, it has its benefits, but none of them have ever even come close for me to wanting to put the sketchbook away. And there's always like one around, and even my daughter, my eldest, what she used to do in my sketchbooks when I'll be drawing, she'd be like, just grab the pen and start drawing under the page as well, which is a cool way of like vandalizing her dad's sketchbook. But I pulled on that the other day, and this is one powerful thing as well, where, and it's interesting because talk about this only a couple of days ago. Like when I have a Photoshop file or any digital file, for some reason, when there's something that, because you can have so many, right? And it's in a gallery and it's hidden in a folder and you're double clicking and all sorts, I will tend to not, unless I have to, just generally look through them and to see what's what. I just find it cumbersome and boring. Yet with a sketchbook, like you can pick it up. There's just something nice about just opening pages, especially when you're looking at one that's like many years old and you forget where your mind was at, and sometimes think, oh, that's a great idea. Or why did I not end up going with that? And then sometimes you think, what the hell was I thinking? But then you see evolution as well.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It definitely, and I don't know. Yeah. Yes. And I love seeing my fellow artists' artwork, and I love seeing everything. Obviously, we see it on screens and online, but still not better than when you see it in an art book. Maybe psychological, maybe something evolutionary that's in our brain kind of thing, but something tactile, something that you can touch and feel is, and the coolest thing as well is you don't need to have the most sophisticated marker setup or the most coolest pen or whatever. You can have the most shittiest pencil or pen, or even your own blood if you want to roll that way, and you can just sketch and get something out that way as well. And yeah, just like, and there's something cool, and yeah, something I spoke to my daughter as well. Like one thing that we both noted was it taps into. I was talking to Pablo about this in a previous episode about just working traditionally. It taps into more senses than if you're working on a screen. Like it's literally just touch and sight. maybe a little bit of hearing, but with a pen, you kind of feel it, you hear it, you smell it if you're using inks and all that kind of stuff. And it all just messes your brain up in a good
It
way.
does, man. It's incredible. I hope if anyone like listens to it, they start doing more of it. It's something I wish I did more of. If there was one thing I could change for my learning journey, start to like seriously draw in a sketchbook a lot earlier. I think it's incredibly useful, and it, as we said, it forces you to make decisions beforehand before you sketch your thing. But there's always that, you can always do tiny explorative thumbnails where you can explore just shapes and like big ideas and like tiny sketches, and then it works really well. And I think a lot of the old masters like Ralph McQuarrie and even the new masters, like, I mean, I have this sketch over here that's from George Hull. If you know George Hull, he worked on Blade Runner, and this is like,
yes.
Daniel got me this from, he went to CGMA and George Hull handed this to him, three different copies. So I have one of them, and like,
sick.
George Hull, incredible artist, but also very good in traditional. And I think like most of the people who are very good in traditional as well, because they have their fundamentals now. You cannot like cheat fundamentals when you do traditional stuff. You have to have your stuff sorted out, especially like if you do like traditional painting. I mean, my art director, Samantha Hogg, she did she did the calendar for Game of Thrones, for the song, what is it called? The Song of Ice and Fire, or whatever it's called.
Yep.
And she did 12 paintings, 12 traditional paintings. They are incredible paintings, oil paintings. And she's obviously a very, very good artist and very good in understanding her fundamentals, and I think it's a thing that makes you a better artist. Yeah.
Yes. No, totally. So that's quite interesting. So was your I guess like sketching journey, like sketching for me, probably if I had to pick any element of the creative process, sketching is my ultimate favorite, mainly because you're just swimming on ideas, and I guess it's quick and dirty. You don't have to really worry about like, like technique too much. Well, obviously you do, but for yourself, it can be as insane as possible. But was your sketching journey mainly initially on digital, or did it kind of start in sketchbooks, then kind of went to digital, and then you kind of went back to sketchbooks?
I think so. I think like you just said it, I started in sketchbooks because I wanted to do that, like the comic book stuff. So I did a lot of like sketching in sketchbooks and like characters and stuff like that. And then when I started to paint and draw in digital, that's when I like started to focus on environments. And I kind of thought like that doing environments, and I kind of thought like, oh, sketchbook is just like for people who do character concepts, like, or people who do like hard surface, right? Because you don't really see that often unless we look at like the Scott Robertson stuff or whatever. I feel like it's like a lot less popular to have environments sketched out in your sketchbooks, like little environment thumbnails and environment ideas. So maybe because of that, because there was a lot less of it, I like was less inclined to do it as well. So I never really did it. And then, as I said, like I went back to it and started doing it. And I was like, this is clearly the right thing to do, So, yeah.
That's it. And I think it's also like, I guess when you're professional, and even just like if you're working to be one, always try it all. Like try whatever thing works, because there's some people who probably put away the sketchbook and never went back, and it's purely digital, and that's totally cool as well. And I think that's always great. Like you just need to find out what your purpose is. Like for myself, my sketchbook is literally just my brain. Like it just, little brain farts that kind of like ended up on a page and they're kind of staining it, and it tends to be like mostly crappy ones, but sometimes decent ones as well. For others, like there's some sketchbooks that just look like absolute pieces of art. And I just still think like amazed, like how can every single page look, to me at least, immaculate, but for them it's like, hey, this is just a shitty sketch. And I'm like, wow. But yeah, it's like, to me it's an art form unto itself. And yeah, like the George Hull sketch you got there, and just even anything like again, like using that as an example, if you're looking at it, or what its intention is just to communicate a design, right? Whether to be approved or not approved, and then it goes to production or whatever else. So that's the main function of it. For us, we start nerding out over A, it looks awesome. Then B, oh, like, look at the form language. And then C is like, wow, look how, the marker was used, and look at that technique. And we get excited of all these little things and really nerd out. And I think it's fascinating. Like I watch, I'm not a very good cook, but I do watch I don't watch many things these days, but I definitely like a good cooking show. And when I hear like these Michelin-starred chefs get excited over flavors and give these weird names to things that I don't understand, but I get why they're getting excited. The same way when I see like a cool design or even like just a cool brushstroke or whatever else. It's just like,
I want to ask you like a question related to sketchbooks. So what would be like sketchbooks that you've seen that you would be like, that were some of the coolest sketchbooks you've seen? I'm just curious.
I'm only going to mention one, and I don't think it's actually a sketchbook, but it's the one that triggered me to pursuing a journey in concept art. Obviously, prior to that, like I did industrial design, I did car design at university. So a lot of it was like industrial design, like literally was just markers and pen and, all that kind of stuff. But the one that really like just made my jaw drop and made me really wish, and still to this day, like I want to be like that, or I want to be able to just achieve something like that, is Daniel Simon's Cosmic Motors book.
Yeah. Oh my
and I don't know if you got that book, but in there, yes, he's got some. And for the time, like that was considered, because I graduated in like 2010. I think I saw that book in 2009. Maybe came out a year before that or around that time. So for me, it was like, oh, goodness, because my whole thing at the time at uni was like, people are drawing cars, I want to do spaceships. This guy who is a car designer did a whole bloody book of spaceships, and every single one was super duper cool. Yes, they're great. They're rendered at a time that was when like there's no such thing as Blender, no such thing as real-time rendering, no such thing as, I guess, GPUs. It was all like you just had to have a powerful computer that cost thousands of pounds to even get anything to look photorealistic. He had this whole book of it, but that wasn't the thing that really made me excited. It was his sketches, and those were sketches but looked like beautiful finished renders unto themselves. And it was a blend of like, he did a mixture of just like pen traditional, and then he went into Photoshop afterwards. And that is the one for me where I just look at it, and it's not even a sketchbook, it's just a few sketches in that book that is my like kind of like a North Star of sketchbooking. And then the other guy is that guy behind you, George Hall. Daniel Simon and George Hall are probably the two most influential people in my career.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah.
Yes.
I think the Daniel Simon stuff is like very, very, very inspiring to see. And when you see his sketches, because I used to know a few car designers, and kind of there was a time when I was around this car design industry and just a little bit. I also did like a little bit of a car design course when in Italy, just during summer as I was studying in university concept art. I just went to kind of see it out. So, and it's crazy like how much like amazing kind of sketching ability they have with pencils, especially like they have this like blue design pencil that they use a lot.
Yes. I've still got a few.
They are incredible pencils. So to be honest, they feel very good. And it's crazy how much kind of ability they have to sketch these forms and sketch ellipses very well, as well as stuff like that. It's something that just like they learn over time, and it is cool to see like when it translates very well. I mean, people even like what's the name of the guy who did car design, that did the Blade Runner stuff as well? Sid Mead. Yeah, Sid Mead used to be a car designer, right? And then became this first concept artist, essentially.
Yes, true. He was patient zero.
So actually, I want to see if I can find. I might have a sketchbook here as well with some more stuff. I want to nerd out about this because this is when I started to sketch more. This is when I did the course with Ryan Fair. So these are all like kind of beginning. I used to do these kind of sketches. These are like some studies, and also trying to understand like the function of like their anatomy, you know, like how they plow snow, bisons and stuff. Some architecture here, you know. And it's all like just not the best sketches, but like it got me kind of interested in doing more and more of these. And then we started doing the assignments as well. So these were just studies. We did some, oh, there are some marker sketches. Some stuff over here. See if I can, so there you go, this stuff.
Do you have like go-to markers? Like, are you one of those that have like specific tools that you prefer, or would you just take anything that's at hand at the time?
I'm kind of still experimenting with like the way I do it. So I started using pencil a little bit more now, but I always start with a marker, with the 0 marker, and then I would usually refine the forms at least like with number 2 marker, and then I'll either go with pen, pencil. You know, I do like this kind of clean look as well. I kind of stopped doing it recently, but I might come back to it. So where I do kind of a bit more clean design. And then, so these were like some sketches for actually the most recent project that's on my art station that I did with Ryan Fair. This was essentially the sketch that inspired like the final painting, you know, and these were like super fun to do. And I think like it all kind of started like actually with this, see if I can, because I need to see what I'm showing it on the camera. So this little sketch here, which I just was looking at some of these like tents and shapes, and I drew this shape and I thought it had like nice, it was cool shape that worked really well and was quite iconic. So then, you know, I did the other designs based off of it. And yeah, I mean, it was kind of like my beginning journey with sketching, and then since then I've been kind of adapting the workflow depending on whatever I have to do at work as well. But yeah, I like Copic markers for sure as well.
Yeah. Now, that's but for me, they run out too quickly. Like, I can get very generous with them, or I can just tend to like, you know, sketch like a ton. I used to use an A3 marker pad. So as you can imagine, the more paper, the more marker you're going to use, and it just rinses out. And Copic still, and never have been, the cheapest. They're always like kind of like up there with prices.
Even the refillable. Have you used the refillable ones as well?
Yeah, I got some refillables. I realized that I didn't need all the colors, so I just stick to the few gray tones that I like, and that's it. And I'm similar to yourself. I prefer to either get some marker down first, very light, just to get some form down, and then just kind of draw on top. Prior to even being introduced to markers, I used to use watercolors. So like in a similar way, like just light watercolors, get some shape down. I used to use the pencil ones, you know, like, and then put the water brush on top and then kind of draw over that. It was just like I guess that was my marker hack before I even realized markers were so awesome. Although I think I had these, I don't know if they still sell them. Have you heard of the AD markers?
I'm not sure. Maybe I've seen it.
I've got some that are like almost, they're quite old. They're still, I'll show you in a second. They still work. But they're very strong. And I remember like I always remember like, why do I not use these? And after about an hour, I realized why I don't use them. Sitting over a desk, normally the window's not even cracked open and the fumes definitely get to you. And yeah, I'm not really good with substances in general, so that's probably why. But I also like how it kind of answered my question as well, but just so like I guess the listeners are aware as well. Like for you, when it comes to sketching, is everything almost sold for you in the sketch? Like you showed, like with the tent design or the tent exploration that you were doing, that was almost the genesis, the trigger of that whole idea, and everything expanded from that. When you use a sketch, is it almost like just like, okay, I'm going to use that almost as a vibe and then see what comes from that? Or is it literally your blueprint and everything has to kind of like, obviously not literally in visual terms, but at least has to kind of match exactly what you intended?
So usually I have a reference board for something that I'm sketching. So a lot of my inspiration comes from looking at images and whether the image inspires something, or it could be like 3 or 4 images that kind of like, I see the pattern in them and I think these 3 images would be interesting. Or sometimes, you just start sketching and then eventually kind of like create a sketch of. But what I'm saying is like, I have the references that kind of inspire me. So usually when I do a sketch, I already know like I know what shapes what represent. So I'll be like, that's a tree, that's a rock, that's a house, that's a whatever, you know. And then when I refine it, it kind of looks like those elements. The only thing that I do now in Photoshop a lot, I will make, as I said, I'll make a sketch and then I'll make shapes out of all the shapes that I have in the sketch, essentially. So let's say I have like different trees or whatever, you know, I'll make those into like just black and white shapes and it will look like a black and white sketch, right? And what I do from there is I, you know, because I already have the idea is there. I'm not trying to go away from it, but because I've been learning a lot about shape language, I try to make it a lot more appealing. I go, how can I make this composition make more appealing? Maybe if I move this tree a little bit to the left, maybe to the right, you know, I'm not trying to rearrange the whole composition. I'm not trying to change everything. So majority of it is there. I'm just moving the elements around and then maybe making certain things a bit more pointy, a bit more rounded, a bit more sad looking, a bit more, you know, happy looking or whatever, a bit more heroic, depending on whatever mood I'm going for. So that's what I do essentially in Photoshop. So I try to keep as much as I can from the sketch, original sketch. I'm just going like, how can I make this cooler and more appealing? Essentially what ideally would happen, I would already have all this information in my head. And when I sketch it, it would already look like the final. And sometimes that's the case. Yes. Sometimes I have to do a little bit more post-processing in Photoshop to get it to look like good, you know.
Sick. And what's your favorite phase in the whole, like from beginning to finished piece? What's your favorite part of the process? Or is
I think I like the sketching phase a lot. So when I'm coming up with ideas, when I have like multiple thumbnails sketched out, and you know, I usually do like a whole page of like random tiny sketches, and I do a page where it's like nicer sketches. So I like that phase, and then the arrangement of shapes I don't like as much because it's quite draining to make sure like all the shapes are working and it's all looking good and everything has like uneven spacing and the scale is expressed right. Because when you have that like little black and white sketch and there's no textures there, like if the scale reads in that sketch, it will read when you add all the texture and stuff. But to make it read, you really have to do some shape arrangement properly. So that part I don't like as much. And then when that's already done, then the final part, painting, I really enjoy a lot as well. Like when I already have all those things and then I'm just rendering and adding, like making it cooler. And, you know, once I'm already like hour in the painting, 2 hours in the painting, then it's I already know it. I know how it's going to go, you know, a little bit of backlighting, a little bit of edge lighting, all the characters, you know, and then that's it. You know, I enjoyed that part a lot as well. So the beginning and the final kind of painting process as well.
And do you have any part that you absolutely hate? In anything?
No, no, I don't think so. Not from image making, not necessarily. I have to say, I don't think there's like a one part that I particularly hate, but yeah, good. I think if I have to design something that's like quite difficult, I don't hate it, but I have to like really be focused, and sometimes I put a lot of pressure on myself to make it look good. Whereas I feel like when you're making just kind of images and just, let's say you have to do some world building images, right? Like the architecture doesn't have to be perfect, right? It has to evoke a certain feeling and blah, 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 right? But like you and your art director look at this image, they go, oh yeah, the architecture could be changed to something else, or it could be cooler, or it could be a bit more representative of a certain culture, you know? And when it comes to like those things, I don't enjoy them as much, where I have to like make it like perfect. Because when I have to be like, okay, now we go from like the general idea to like very good design, I start to like stress a bit because I'm like overthinking everything and being like, oh, is this correct? This is not correct. But I still like a lot of the parts of the process, you know.
You mentioned something a few minutes ago about, I guess, like when you're enriching your sketch and developing it. You mentioned, obviously, you described it as like with the shape language, like you use emotion terms or terms related to basically emotion and feeling. And definitely, I think like that is the stage as an artist where when you start asking those questions, I would say that's where it's at. Like that, or, you know, like I guess that's when you're kind of definitely like focusing on the essence of what makes a good piece of art or a good image or design or whatever. Is that something that you've always been like? Was that something that you developed over
I
time?
think it's something that I've kind of always known that you should be doing,
Nice.
but I never really understood how to do it. And now that I've been learning about shape language, I've been kind of learning how to apply it. I think you can apply it a lot with obviously colors and mood and stuff like that as well, which I haven't quite learned yet. Like I mean, I have pretty like if there's something I feel like I have a good feeling for is like the painting and like making it look real and making it look certain mood. And I know I don't not necessarily like a great painter, but I'm a pretty good like photo manipulator and photo basher. Like I can done that for so long. Like that is definitely one of my strengths. So I know how to do different lighting situations. I mean, I've been asked to do like 10 different lighting situations on one image before at work, and I can just do it with photo bashing as well. So I have that experience. So it's something that I do a bit more subconsciously, but I think there's still a lot to learn there, for example. And I think just so far I've been doing it with shapes, and hopefully I can start doing it with colors a bit more. And then, there's still like the whole painting aspect as well. Like how do you actually painterly express certain things and certain emotions as well, potentially. How do you, when you're talking painterly, how do you make smudge out certain faces or smudge out certain things to make it feel more ambiguous, so the viewer is asking more questions. That's next level. That's like Craig Mullins, Jamie Jones. That's like who knows in how many years level. Yeah.
That is true. And you mentioned they're like true masters. What is your take when you see mastery in front of you, or you see a master painting, or even a master painter themselves, or an artist? Does it discourage you, or does it make you more excited to be like, at least that's the benchmark of the levels that could be reached? What's your take on that?
I think I get excited about all this stuff, man. I look at this shit and I'm like, more of it, more amazing art, please, And there's doesn't feel like there's enough of it now, There's every now and then like people popping out and doing like incredible work, but it's not as much, So more often I just look back at old artwork and looking at that stuff rather than new artwork. But yeah, every time I see it, I get excited, and every time I understand it, I get even more excited. I'm like, oh, I've learned something now. When I look at a painting that I used to look at and not understanding, like, why is it working? And now I look at it and I see the good things, but I also see the mistakes or some things that maybe the author couldn't quite describe, maybe due to time constraints or whatever it was, When I start seeing those patterns, I'm like, damn, okay, I've learned something, There's still a lot that I don't know. And there's still a lot, like, when I look at designs and sketches, there's still so much, I look at a lot of like the God of War designs and I think like, wow, they did such a great job with world building and stuff like that. And I hope I can kind of do that as well with the game that we are making, and who knows, maybe later I will understand like there are other things I could have done better, but I love looking at inspiring art, good art. So, yeah.
I'm glad to hear it. I also like what you mentioned there about, cause that's something that I've like kind of like found myself drawn to more. It wasn't like a deliberate thing, and I guess like it's also cool as well because yes, we see advancements in technology. You could say advancements. Some of them, are not advancements, but they're kind of forced upon us or pushed in front of us. That's apparently, I guess, that you could call it advanced in how you look at things. But with art itself, it's interesting. Maybe it's a time thing. Maybe it's how long we spend with something that we think is better than it actually is. But art and artists have been incredible from forever. Yeah. And some art seems to be getting better. And maybe like, the newer stuff, maybe because we don't see all of it. I'm sure there's like some masterpieces that we'll never get to see or hidden somewhere. But they don't seem to be able to ever get close. It's almost like it's a downward decline of like where the great art is. And then it's kind of like getting a bit worse and worse. Maybe that's just, a biased observation or it's a flawed observation, but I think it's interesting and powerful to see advancements, but also maybe see more greatness at times where there was no advancement.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, I agree on the sense that there certainly are incredible artists from back then, master painters and master, people who knew how to design things very well. And I think fundamentals is something that never really went away, like, and maybe part of it is related to that, like nowadays you have so many quick tricks and stuff like that that can make you look like you have these fundamentals, but you don't really have them, So just like I was talking about shape language and sketching, those guys, those works work really well because they knew their shit, And if you don't know your shit, well, you better learn it because that's your only way how to get better, is like learning your fundamentals, learning your understanding of shape and light and color and like design and stuff like that. So I think back then, those artists, they knew their shit. There was no other way around it. So they were very good, and they spent, they had the same amount of years as we had to learn, essentially. And I think there's great artists nowadays as well that do incredible stuff as well.
Yes.
So I think there was great art, and there's still amazing art around us. And I think we've explored so many great things as well with movies and sci-fi and stuff like that, and inspired generations to create more interesting things. So I think there's still a lot out there.
See, I reckon, like, let's say you swapped them around. Yes, some of them are true icons and is more of their own internal, like, I guess, flair and genius and understanding of fundamentals. But let's say you swapped artists of this age, and with them, they would be doing the same habits that we're doing now, and that artist would be doing with the limitations they had. And I guess maybe it's more a testament to working within a limitation. Like you said, like they had no other way but to do that. But something you mentioned as well, which I've been trying to like see if I can figure out more when I go to a gallery or even like a museum or just look at anything that's come from a different era, especially like ancient stuff. Like, yes, there were differences in like technology, I guess, but the human brain, how it's structured, is still the same as it was then, as it is now. They would have the similar insecurities, similar doubts, similar things of like, oh, I'm not going to be good at this or whatever. Because there's no way artists have that insecurity, I guess, is imbued with being an artist. Like, it's always been there. So I'm always looking and thinking, so what was their mistake? Or was that something that we think is great, but they thought was a failure? Like, we look at our own work and, like, it's like, we think, oh, that's amazing. And like take, like, I guess it's a bit of a different example, but take someone like George Lucas and whatever you feel about Star Wars. Normally the general consensus is the first one and the early ones are the greatest ones. Yet for him, they were probably the most painful ones, the ones where he saw flaws, when nothing ever went well. Then when he had all the tools and had everything at his whim, like Thanos almost, those are the ones that people don't tend to like so much versus that one. So, a few things I've just thrown in there, but I guess like kind of like maybe it's in a sadistic way, but I'm definitely more intrigued of whoever made something, what were their insecurities at the time, and how is it manifested in the art?
A lot of old artists had their own insecurities, and they all thought maybe there was someone else better than them. Caravaggio. I mean, who knows? Caravaggio maybe thought he was the best. I don't know. But
yeah,
there was. I'm sure. Like, what are their names? Let me try to. I remember all the old artists, but like Sargent, I'm sure he knew that he could have done other, certain things better. And also, I think because maybe there was less references around, some of these artists ended up not doing as much, for example, design work. I think like this is something that we've advanced a lot at, is like creating new worlds and new ideas, something that you don't really see in ancient paintings. And I wonder if that was something that maybe was insecurity of some of those artists as well, because they used to create art in a very kind of traditional way where they would like pose the people and then they would like paint them from life, And I wonder if they wished maybe that they could create more interesting things, or they could see more.
I mean, just imagine, like what they could have done if that was where the artistic mindset was, like, I guess, located towards, like a satellite dish, like that was where the signal was being sent or received. And I guess a lot of it was because, and maybe for us as it is now, like, I guess commercially, that's where the jobs are at. Like, that's what they need of artists. And back then it was a case of like, well, it's going to be some aristocrat or some rich person who's going to want a family portrait. So you're going to be able to do that to compete with it. And it's cool. It's a shame, I guess, at a certain point, because if we can come up with worlds, and most of it starts in here, it's not really on the paper. Like a lot of it's in your brain and stuff. What were they thinking in a, like, I guess, in a fictional way that would never, be able to see? But I guess that's one of the cool things that we can geek out about and fascinate, and like
I
muse
wish there
over.
was more like mythological paintings. If there's something
Oh,
there,
for sure.
I know there
For
was
sure.
I forgot the name of the artist, but he was like really into doing like painting mythological stuff. He's very famous, but I forgot his name. And he ended up doing it only for a bit because it didn't pay well, like exactly what you said.
Yeah.
And then he
Yeah.
became an incredible portrait artist and very famous for that stuff. But his what he always wanted to do was like mythology and then like depicting mythological scenes, and he never really got to do much of it because if you're not paid, you just live on the street, and the art was moving a little bit slower back then. One painting took a year or something, or however long it took, but it was a lot more difficult to do many paintings like now.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think it's like kind of still true now, even though we can do so much with the tools that we have. It's still, and this used to really, like, I wouldn't say depress me out in an unhealthy way, but it did kind of make me feel like a bit down, thinking that I'm never ever going to like explore all the things I want to explore. But that has definitely gone away, and I see that as a beautiful thing. Like, that's incredible. Like, I'm never gonna. I don't know why I feel like it's a cool thing, but I'm definitely made peace with that and content with the fact that I'm only gonna probably explore like a very small sliver of what's possible. But that's cool. I'm cool with
Man,
that. And maybe because there's so many other artists that are doing other awesome things that I can, I guess, explore through their work instead. I don't know.
dude, it's like a time capsule. We explore now, and then there'll be people after us,
Yes.
and they'll explore totally. And people, like, hopefully, if concept art survives and all this stuff, 200 years from now, people will be looking at our stuff, be like, "Wow, what were these guys thinking?" And I think
Yeah.
that's dope as well. Just they'll be like,
Yes.
"Oh my god, George was drawing a fucking flying vehicle, and now we have
Yes.
we don't even have vehicles; we just teleport or something."
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
so interesting.
And I guess final point before we wrap up. You mentioned obviously all the artists and what they were doing. What would you like to be doing? Obviously, you're working on skills, and that's inspired me listening to how you are. At least I've interpreted it like hunting for the next skill you want to improve on, and then going for it. But overall, as an artist, is there any particular kind of art you want to make, or just how do you see? Because you mentioned that you don't have like a
Mhm.
specific goal, but you must have like some kind of idea, or I guess like kind of like which direction
Mhm.
you're kind of going in, whether how vague is like east, north,
Yeah.
west, or whatever, if not looking that way. But like, yeah, how do you see things for yourself? And I guess you can kind of maybe throw in some thoughts about AI
Mhm.
and stuff on that as well. Like if that's going to really change things, because it is, I can see why people are scared. And for some people, it has cost them their livelihoods as a result at this moment in time. But yeah,
Yeah.
few final thoughts from yourself.
So I think, first of all, like talking about AI, I think just to get that quickly and explain, I think I heard of jobs that are being like people are being potentially have to do it or use the tool. Even I cannot say like where or what industry or what it was, but I know there's many industries or many companies that are also rejecting it in some way, and they're trying to go kind of against it. I think it a lot depends
Mm-hmm.
on the people who work in the company as well. I think if everyone is boycotting it, it's difficult for the company to force everyone to use it. So I think that's part of it as well. I think AI is something that is just going to be dependent on the approach, how we use it. Use it by I mean is like how we decide whether we want to use it or not, and whether we decide that it should be just based off of the kind of, we're talking here about human experience, like art is something that brings people ideally fulfillment and kind of happiness. We try to express ourselves, and that's what art is at the end of the day. And AI art is taking away from that, um, for most part. I think it's kind of sometimes easy to be like, oh, it can make me a better artist. But in reality, art is a journey that when you undertake, you learn a lot about yourself. You become a better, better craftsman, and you understand the job better. And I think it's good. And if we can collectively reject it and find a way how to not use it, I think then not going to have to use it. It just depends on how that's going to go. So, yeah, I'm sure. I don't know. Did you ask this question to Daniel as well?
Oh, yeah, I think we spoke about it a little bit. I don't remember how in depth we've been on it as well, but yes, we definitely spoke about it.
It's like, I know he made an article about it on his ArtStation. So if anyone's listening, you can just go on ArtStation, read through that. And there's like a lot of good arguments there to explain some of this stuff. And yeah, in terms of industry, I think so far, if there is anything I would just say is like, focus on your fundamentals. This is something that you can learn and improve your art. Don't focus on like quick shortcuts and quick tips, because that potentially can be replaced with AI. But your knowledge of fundamentals, your knowledge is something that you gain, and you have, like, it's kind of like that thing of like, if someone creates an image with AI, if you don't have the knowledge fundamentals, you'll just look at it and be like, wow, that is the masterpiece. But you have the knowledge of fundamentals, you can like go like, this is wrong, this can be improved, this can be improved, this can be improved. And how much it can be improved is just dependent on your knowledge of fundamentals, And at the end of the day, like, creation of ideas also just comes through the exploration of, through the art of sketching and like designing and stuff like that. Like ideas, if idea is presented in front of you by like just typing in a prompt, then it's probably not going to come out of your own creativity. And to create an idea is just something that can be, you can have, like I was saying, I can have many references and I'm just putting references together. But sometimes the most unique ideas come from most random places as you are sketching, and all of a sudden you sketch out the shape, and then that shape expands into something else, and that expands into a brilliant idea, and you would have never gotten there if you just typed in a prompt and it was just in front of you. You can only get there by doing these little sketches and getting into this like incredible place where everything is just pouring down on a page and you're doing the right decisions, So I would say that. And then for myself, like where I am kind of seeing moving myself in this industry and in everything with how everything is going as well, including the AI stuff and including just like the whole state of the industry right now. I think my goal is to keep working at Sharkmob, hopefully for now, and create the best game we can, and from there, I want to probably go towards finding more people that I can learn from, I think, and working with teams where I can improve myself and also hopefully contribute a little bit. So that's like my overall goal. And as I was saying, like if there's something that jumps up, or if there's like incredible project or incredible idea, then I'll go towards that, and we'll see how that goes. That's the plan.
Awesome. Stefan, it's been great. I could chat to you for the rest of the day, but we need to wrap it up. Any final thoughts, words, anything you want to plug before we
final thoughts? I want to say also, if we were talking about sketchbooks before, I was like holding this in my mind to like say, if Marcus Michael, my colleague, he has an incredible sketchbook. If you ever see him around, you can peek into his sketchbook. You're going to be like mind blown how amazing it is. And then Daniel McGarry has an incredible sketchbook as well. And I know also my friend Jules Dariat, he sketches very good. But what he did start recently is doing like a full sketch project. So look out for that. Hopefully he'll post it and it will be good. Nice. So those are like the main things I would want to say. And then that's it. I mean, thanks for inviting me. It's been amazing. Concept 101 as well. 30th of August. Whoever can come, we'll be releasing tickets soon. Maybe by the time this podcast is out, some of them are already released. But cool. Anyway, that's pretty much it.
A big thanks to Stefan for jumping on and for his infectious enthusiasm, which has definitely inspired me to do that little bit more. See what Stefan is up to by hitting the links attached to this episode, and then head over to learnsquare.com to start your own creative journey today. I've been your host, Aaron Danda. Till next time.